James wrote in and said, I'm married and feel like I take my anger towards my mother out on my wife. Anything negative that my wife does which reminds me of my mother sets me off on a verbal tirade. How can I separate my feelings for one from the other? My wife is a wonderful person who deserves better than this, and I have to stop doing this or it will end our marriage.
How long has this been going on for?
Uh, Probably since
Whoa.
we've been there. Can you hear
Are
me?
you calling from a beach radio?
I don't get the reference.
Oh, it just sound kind of Jenny. Anyway, all right, we'll survive. Okay, so how long have you been doing this, taking this stuff out on your wife?
God, probably since probably soon after we first met, which was about 3 years ago.
And she knew all of this before you got married?
God, no, I think she just kind of discovered it slowly over time. The issues that I have with my mom.
No. I'm not talking about issues with your mom. I'm talking about you blowing up at I guess originally she was like a date and then girlfriend and then fiance, right? So before you got married, I assume that you're saying that you blew up at her beforehand, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So why would she put up with this? I mean, why wouldn't you just say, nope, sorry, I'm into a non-blowing up kind of guy, right?
Well, she's actually here if you want to ask her.
Oh, great. Yeah, if you don't mind, put her on.
Julia, she can hear you.
So what's the question?
I'm sorry, Julia. You can you hear it, or like, is you got headphones on? Is that?
No, we're on a tablet.
Oh, okay. Got it. I think given the sound quality, this is actually an ancient Babylonian stone tablet, but all right. So, Julia, was it Julia? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So, Julia, when did he first, as he calls it, blow up at you?
When we were dating, it happened once or twice. So I really didn't, it was not important back then because it was like something, that happened just twice. But then.
Okay, but hang on. So, and what? So it happened twice while you were dating, and I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just really want to get a clear picture of a few things. What did the blowing up look like?
We just start talking about something that makes him very uncomfortable, or I just say something that makes him very uncomfortable, and then he starts being a bit, I don't know, nervous or something like that, aggressive in a way, not verbal, not like he's not hitting me or anything, but aggressive in a way, it's just like not like a normal behavior, let's say.
This seems not. See, he called it blowing up, and I'm not sure what you're talking about. Some mild verbal tension or aggression. Which is it?
Verbal, I mean, we start getting to an argument, a very silly, stupid argument, but things, he tends to take. Things get out of proportion. That's the way I feel. Simple.
Okay, does he yell?
He used to, yeah. Not anymore, but he used to.
So before you got married, he yelled?
Yeah, that happened like twice.
No, I get it. And does he use names to call you stupid or whatever?
Yeah, that already happened. But
okay, so what are the names that he's used?
Married.
What are the names that he's used?
Oh, like stupid or idiot or cunt, you name it. I just don't keep track of all.
So that's more than just a little verbal aggression, right?
Yes, but that's the thing that it's very hard for me because when we were dating, that never happened. We had arguments, silly arguments, nothing like too serious, nothing like beyond, regular young couples arguments. But since we got married, things are kind of, got out of proportion, I think. And then it's very difficult for me because I didn't grow up with this, So
You didn't grow up with sort of that kind of verbal aggression?
yeah, yeah. So and you have to understand, my parents got divorced when I was 6, but they do respect each other very, very much. I had them present in my life. There was no, arguments in front of me and my sister, or like they just. So I didn't grow up watching that. So for me it's a bit scary because that's, I'm from Brazil, and it's not me, it's not my family, it's not, I'm not used to that at all.
Okay, so he called you stupid, idiot, and I hate to use the word, but cunt. And was there anything else that he said that has, I guess, wounded your heart in this way?
Yeah, that's pretty much all I can remember right now.
And you say no physical aggression?
No, not at all.
And in what context did he call you a cunt?
It's usually because I think that it's better if we talk, and he tries to just run away, just leave the house, or just go somewhere, and I'm just worried because he seems so kind of out of control, or so irritated, so nervous that it makes me wonder what is he going to do. And I just want to talk about the problem, and just I want to understand what he's coming from. And but it's very hard to talk to him when he's upset, or mad or angry. So I have.
And how often does this, sorry to interrupt, but how often does this happen? The upset. I don't mean necessarily the names, but the upset.
In the beginning was very difficult. So it was happening pretty much kind of every month, every other week, or something like this. Now,
In the beginning of what? In the beginning of what?
the marriage, in the beginning of, a year ago, um, because we have been married for 2 years.
And you knew each other for a year before you got married, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So now things are much better. We are willing to talk about problems. The arguments don't happen very often. So he's much calmer right now. But I think there is an issue, a problem between my husband and his mother. And I've come to find out that he takes a lot of things that I say, or the way I behave, or if my behavior reminds him his mother, that's when he feels like he needs to be more, angry, or that's what makes him upset. And I just, I just don't know what to do. It's very
What do you think of his mother?
I like her very much. I think she, now that I'm part of the family, I know some of the problems, nobody tells you that before you get married, unfortunately.
No, they do. No.
I did.
Yeah, they do.
What is it?
Well, no, people do talk about, family issues or problems before they get married, right? Some people do.
No, the family issues, you don't really know. You don't, you start learning little by little. Maybe because they feel embarrassed, maybe because, you know what I mean? It's just like it took them a while to feel comfortable with me, to let me know about some problems, which I completely understand. But we get along very well, me and his family. We love each other very much, but I think she made some mistakes in the past, and she has some trouble kind of facing the mistakes she made. And my husband and, his mother never had a chance to establish I don't know, some sort of bond or communication. They are not allowed to talk about emotions and feelings. So,
Wait, sorry, I'm just trying to understand. Weren't allowed? I mean, the mother was in charge of the relationship, right?
yes, yes, yes.
So it's all her responsibility, right?
Yeah, I believe so. But
No, because the way you're portraying it is like they somehow never developed this, or it wasn't, they're not allowed or something. But what you mean is the mother never developed it, and the mother does not allow him to talk about X, Y, or Z, right?
yeah, yes, I believe that's right.
Okay. So, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. I think that that's completely different from my family, because we were allowed to talk to our, parents and grandparents and, about pretty much anything you can imagine.
And do you
So
think that's better?
yeah,
That's better for you, right?
yeah, it was better, especially because I usually think that kids that came, came from you know, grew up with a family without a, mom and dad living together, they usually tend to get a lot of problems. But my parents were very close, although they are not married. But our family, his family, and my mother's family was always they managed everything. We were always close, so I didn't have to choose between loving my dad or loving my mom, or stay with my mom and stay with my dad. So um I mean, we were allowed to say things to our parents, to
Okay,
discuss.
so sorry. So just I think we're repeating ourselves now, or rather you are. So what you mean to say, if I understand it correctly, is that you had a good family life and his family life wasn't so good, but you can still love his mother, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I'm just going to go through his adverse childhood experience score, and I just want to make sure that you know about this stuff. So James, you scored 5, and I'm very sorry about that, of course. So one you said yes to was verbal abuse and threats. What was that, if you don't mind saying?
If you can think of it, you can name it. Just, I guess, threats of violence. Got those pretty regularly.
Be specific. Well, like what?
All right. Well, I wasn't doing something. My mom, it was usually my mom, particularly when I was younger, just goofing off, not coming to the dinner table, I guess, or not doing my homework, not doing good in school. That was grounds for usually when I was younger it was like a bare bottom smack. Like I had to lay down, pull down my pants, lay down over her knee, and she'd smack me on the ass.
So bare ass, right?
Oh yeah.
And hard, like red welts, that kind of stuff.
Hard enough to where, 25 years later, I remember every bit of it.
And how often did that happen?
I'm really not sure. I don't know if I blacked out.
Just roughly. Again, everyone expects these exact answers, but once a year is not the same as daily, right? So just roughly.
Yeah, probably not daily. Probably every other week or so. The bare bottom smacks were by far the worst, and those were more infrequent. If I could take a guess at it, I would say like maybe every 3 months.
All right. Okay.
And
threats of these would occur. Threats of these would occur even when they weren't happening, right?
Yes, and I would say that was a lot more common. Just the threats of, like with
and
my
you
dad.
don't know, and just for those, and this is for your sake as well. But this is important to understand, Julia, that as you know, right? If the mafia says, "Pay us protection money, or we're going to burn down your store and they've already burnt down the store next to you, you pay them the money, right? Like you don't actually have to burn down your store. So if you have been assaulted by your mother in this violent kind of way, the threats are almost as bad as the assault because you don't know if the threats are going to lead to the assault and all this, right? So this is extremely violent and dangerous stuff for a child to be threatened with and to experience many times throughout his childhood. So I just want to point that out because everyone thinks, well, the threats aren't as bad as the violence. Well, no, actually, most people pay taxes not because people say we're going to come up and throw you to jail, but because they're afraid of the threat, right? So it's all right. So okay, so was there more you wanted to talk about with the verbal abuse and threats?
I mean, that was basically it, and it continued. I'll say it continued up until I was about 14, I want to say, and kind of magically, the threats and the actual violence stopped one day. I pushed my dad.
Oh, you got big, right?
Yeah, I was bigger than my dad. I was almost 6 feet tall, and he's like 5'10", and I told him.
It's amazing how quickly parents discover reason when you're looking down on them, right?
Yeah. I pushed him against the wall, and I told him, don't ever fucking touch me again.
Right.
And that stopped after that.
You also scored yes for physical abuse, non-spanking. I wonder if you could mention a bit about that.
Okay. I may have misread that.
It doesn't matter. Like, we can move on to the next one. So you said no family love or support?
Not a lot. I never really felt I could go to either one of my parents when I was a kid if I had some kind of problem. It was pretty much me and my brother, and he and I don't have the best relationship, which I'm desperately trying to fix right now. So is he.
Right.
But so it was pretty much kind of us by ourselves for the majority of our childhood, and
so you were one of the third of kids basically say, I don't go to my parents with problems because my parents just make it worse.
Yeah. Basically, I'm in trouble if there's a problem. I mean, I would get in fights. I got in a fight on the bus once. I broke a kid's nose, and I went home, and my brother, of course, is a year younger. He just let the cat out of the bag immediately. He's like, "Oh my God, there's blood everywhere," and I was in trouble. And the reason the fight started was because this kid was hitting me in the back of the head, punching me in the back of the head.
Yeah. Okay, so no real love or support in this situation, for which again I'm really sorry for. Lived with alcoholic or drug user?
Yeah, my mom's I guess she's in recovery. She's had kind of a string of addictions, I would say. It started with religion, actually. She was raised in a very Catholic household, and kind of at the same time she dumped the religion, she picked up the bottle. And
yikes.
Yeah, and
do you know why she dumped the religion?
Sure, she's transferring she's just transferring addictions, right?
No, I know, but do you know why she dumped religion?
Oh, I don't.
I was just curious. Okay, it doesn't matter hugely. Okay. All right. So, so how often was she abusing alcohol, or for what period of time when you were a kid?
I don't know when it started. It may have been before I was born. It stopped after I left home. I left home at 17, so I know by like 22 or 23 she'd quit, and she'd kind of.
So throughout your entire childhood, she was abusing alcohol.
Yeah, pretty much.
And was she driving with you? Was she driving cars and driving with you in the car while she was abusing alcohol?
I'm usually pretty oblivious to a lot of things, so I don't know. It's certainly possible. I know at least one time she got behind the wheel of my dad's car, and it was obvious to me at that point. I was probably 16, and I knew she'd been drinking, and I just took the key from her and threw it in the woods.
Good for you, man. Good for you.
Right.
Good for you. Okay, so she's like, if she did this kind of stuff, which I'm sure she did, she's just like an accidental non-murderer, right? Because she just happened to not kill anyone while she was driving drunk. Okay.
Yeah.
And last but not least, it's the household member depressed, mentally ill, or suicidal?
I was depressed when I was in high school for a while.
Sure.
There's problems at home and problems at school.
Right. Right. Okay. All right. So, Julia, did you know all of this?
Yes, I know this, but not when I got married. I didn't know about all of this.
So, Julia, do you know what I'm going to ask you next?
No.
You claim to love this woman
Mm-hmm.
who regularly beat your husband when he was a helpless and dependent child, who was a drunk or an alcoholic throughout his childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a great relationship with her.
Mm-hmm.
What are you saying?
I'm saying.
I don't understand that.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing you told me about was that, well, they had some problems communicating.
Mm-hmm.
Look, if you're not going to tell me the truth, I can't have a conversation with you.
Mm-hmm.
If what he's describing is being beaten, being physically assaulted
Mm-hmm.
by both parents,
Mm-hmm.
her being a drunk,
Mm-hmm.
which means she's emotionally unavailable, not having love or support in his family.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing that you told me that was negative about his mom was that, well, they have these communications issues and sometimes the mom doesn't let him speak freely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So what's going on?
Well, the relationship she established with me was a completely different relationship.
No. Don't blame her. Because you knew all of this stuff. I just asked you if you knew this stuff, right?
Yeah, this is stuff.
And you said yes.
Yeah, I just found out
But
about.
then when you described your relationship with her, you said it was loving and it was great,
Mm-hmm.
but that they had a few communications issues.
Yes, that's how.
Okay, let me sort of lay it out for you in a way that, because I can get that this is going to be a little tricky for you to get, right? Let's say, I don't know if you've ever been married before.
No.
Okay, let's say you had an ex-husband, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that ex-husband had been drunk for the 17 years of your marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And had beaten you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Once every week, once every 2 weeks, and a couple of times a year had really beaten you, right? To the point where you can remember every blow years later. And this had happened maybe 100 times over the course of your marriage.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then you had told all of this to James, right?
Mm-hmm.
And James said to me, I love her ex-husband. He is a wonderful man. We get along wonderfully. He's great. I love him. Now, it's true that they had some communications problems in their marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Right? What would you think?
I think it's messed up. It's horrible.
Do you understand where I'm coming from now?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You're not connecting with any of this emotionally. So if you're not willing to have an emotional discussion at all, I'm happy to go back to talk to James with some greater understanding as to why he's pretty pissed off. So I don't know if you're willing to just give me these empty mm-hms or whether you actually want to do any work in the conversation.
Oh, I do. What I.
No, you don't, because you just keep giving me these mm-hmm.
No, it's just to show that I'm.
You're not connecting with how outrageous it is what you're saying.
No,
I am. You're saying you love the woman who abused your husband, and she's great, and you love her.
But what I was I got exactly what you were saying. But that's why.
Does it affect you at all? Does it impact your heart at all? Because you're not changing your tone at all.
Yes, because I'm just trying to say that. That's why it's just so confusing for me. You know, what you point out right now, it makes a lot of sense. But when I first noticed the problem, there was a problem.
No. I don't want to get back into your first noticing and this and that and the other.
I know.
I want to get back to what you just told me. And I'm not trying to beat you up here. I'm really not. I'm just trying to get these wires connected for you, Julia. I really am. because I really want you guys to have a better marriage.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You said you knew all of these abuses that your husband had suffered while an innocent and helpless child at the hands of his parents. You
Yeah,
knew all of those abuses.
but I didn't know since the beginning. That's what I'm trying to say. I just found out recently. So that's why I'm just so confused
What do you
right
mean you just found out recently?
because I didn't know my relationship with his parents were established way, a long time ago. But this situation between, his mom and him, that's new to me. This beating
How
up
new? How new? I don't know what that means, new to me. A year, 2 years, 6 months, 6 minutes? What does that mean?
months, like a few months, that was not because we all went to therapy because I could not understand the friction between his mom.
Who's we all? Who's we all?
Yeah, because she was not telling me anything. She was not telling me this, and that's the problem because she was not admitting anything to the point that I was asking him, and James, what really happened because nobody was telling me. I was not aware of the real problem.
Oh, so hang on. Sorry, James, you kept all of this from your wife while you were dating, when you got engaged, when you got married. Is that right? You didn't tell her any of this stuff?
Well, in the beginning, I told her, I don't have the best relationship with my mom, and I only discovered you 11 months ago. So it was
I'm not. No, listen. I'm not trying to corner you or, give you a sentence here. I just want the facts, right? So did you keep this stuff from? I mean, I'm not saying you knew it all. Maybe this show has helped you sort of get in touch with that, which I'm obviously happy about. But did she know any of this stuff until a couple of months ago?
No, because I didn't even know it. Before I discovered your show last year, I was completely convinced by what my mom usually said, and that's, oh, you had a great childhood. We were great parents, and I totally bought into that.
Stockholm syndrome, the whole thing, right? Of course, because that's convenient for them, and you're used to obeying the abusers, right?
Next thing you know, I'm Patty Hearst in a bank with a submachine.
Yeah, got it.
So, yeah, like 6 months ago, it connected for me, and then as I slowly realized all the stuff, I told Julia about it, and I mean, she's still dealing. She's heard the whole story. She's heard.
I don't think she has. Nope, I don't think she has. I mean, she may have heard it, but she's not got it.
Right, I agree.
Right. Because, I mean, you guys have to listen back to how she introduced her relationship with your mother.
I agree. And my mom does the worst thing ever. She, everybody, all my friends that have met her, they're like, oh, she's the sweetest, nicest person. And I just kind of mumble under my breath, yeah, you don't fucking really know her. And
okay, so James, how did you feel deep down, somewhere north of the gonads and south of the bowels, right? How did you feel deep down when she was talking about how much she loved your mom and what a great relationship they had?
I've gotten so used to just everybody saying
no, don't give me the so used to.
No.
How did you feel deep down when she was saying how much she loved your mother and what a wonderful woman your mother was, and that the only problems were that there was just mysterious communications issues in your relationship?
Shitty.
Yeah, it is shitty, right? And Julia, I'm not trying to blame you. I'm just, if you want to understand how to not have as much conflict with your husband, you have to stand for the moral reality that he's not allowed to have. Like you said that there's things they can't discuss somehow, James and his mother. But holy shit, you can't even discuss them in an anonymous forum like this. You tried to give a complete snow job and whitewash everything that happened to him as a child, even though you've known for months what actually happened.
Yeah.
You're the one who actually has the communications issue and is unable to stand up for and reinforce the moral reality of what your husband experienced as a child at the hands of his abusers.
But that's what happened a few months ago when I found when he felt comfortable and he really talked to me about what really happened.
Right.
And that's when I said, I told his dad, we have
No.
have to
Oh my God. Will you stop talking about months ago? In this very conversation, months after you knew your husband had been abused by his parents and neglected, and that his mother was an alcoholic, which is incredibly abusive as a parent, drunk driving is not a whole lot better than drunk parenting,
I see.
right? In this conversation, you claimed she was a lovely woman, you loved her, she was great. That is a betrayal of your husband.
Yeah, it's just like what he said. That's how she comes across until you go deep down and you find out what.
No. Don't blame her because you know the truth.
Yeah, now I know.
Forget. You don't have first impressions. You've known this woman for years and you've known the truth for 6 months.
Yes.
So don't tell me how convincing she is at first impressions. You don't have that excuse anymore. You understand?
And that's why.
So why can't you stand up when I say, how do you get along with his mother? Why don't you say, she was an abusive and horrible parent to him. It breaks my heart to think of what he went through as a child.
Yeah, that's.
Why do you tell me about how wonderful and lovely she is?
I don't know. Maybe because I'm just so confused. I'm really.
Nope.
It's very shocking to me.
No, you are not confused. No, you are not confused. Do you think he's lying?
No, I don't. I just.
Okay, so he's telling the truth. So you have to take a moral stand here if you love your husband. Anyone who hurts my wife is not my friend. You understand? Anyone who hurts my daughter is not my friend. They are, in fact, my enemies.
Okay.
And if this woman, and I'm not doubting you for a second, James, here, but this woman regularly beat on and assaulted your husband when he was helpless and dependent. Imagine if your husband was laid up in hospital and you came to visit him and some nurse was beating him. Would you say, well, I'm sure that nurse is a lovely woman?
No.
Of course you wouldn't. He's frustrated and angry, and I'm not forgiving. We'll get back to that, right? I'm not sort of snapping that away, right? He's got moral agency here too. But let me tell you, if you claim to have not gone through an abusive childhood, which, given your lack of moral courage in this conversation, seems a bit confusing to me. But if you say that you've gone through a happy childhood and you've got all the moral strength that comes from that, okay, fine, let's just believe that for the moment.
Okay.
But what you need to understand is that nobody stands up for him. At the beginning of this podcast, I talked about how nobody stands up for the male victims of abuse, particularly if the perpetrator of that abuse is a female. How many times do you ever hear about women beating up husbands? It happens about equal, but you never hear about it. How often do you hear about men being raped by women? It happens extremely often, and you never hear about it.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm sorry?
That's
right?
true.
So nobody stands up. Nobody, and I get it, right? I mean, you and I raised in the same crappy culture where men are just disposable assholes to fix eaves troughs and make babies, right? But
Yeah.
you got to change that. He's in this conversation now. He's in self-knowledge, which means you have to grow a spine and you have to recognize that what that woman did to your husband was unconscionable, was evil. You cannot be a drunk parent. You cannot be a parent who bare-ass spanks a child to the point where he remembers it vividly decades later. On a regular basis, she did that. And neglected him and did not make him feel loved and did not play with him and did not connect with him and did not love him.
I see.
But beat and drunk and ignored him. You have to stand up for that. He is programmed to not see it. You are not, because it's not your family. But the degree to which you don't stand with his inner child against this hellacious abuser of his is the degree to which he's going to be angry at you for betraying his pain and denying his pain and bonding and praising his abuser. Do you know how horrible that is for the victim of child abuse? Imagine if you'd been raped and he was best friends with your rapist. How would you feel?
Yeah, I will feel horrible. You're pretty, and that's why he wanted to have this call, because you're putting things in a different perspective, and that's what I really needed to hear. And I'm very glad that I'm having the chance to talk to you, because it's just like a wake-up call. You know what I mean? And
I mean, I hate to put it this way, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, and I hate to put it this way because it doesn't sound like I'm giving him moral agency, but we'll get to him in a second. But listen, I'm going to give you the basic equation here, Julia, for the success of your marriage.
Okay.
Either you call his mother a cunt, or he's going to call you a cunt.
Well,
Okay.
James, am I anywhere close?
yeah. Yeah,
I'm willing to call the mother a cunt. I am. She's a horrible human being.
Yeah,
Absolutely
agree.
horrible, vicious, irresponsible, abusive, violent, destructive, hideous human being.
Yep.
Your dad, too.
My dad's a different story.
Not really.
Well,
He married her.
Oh, that's true, but I mean, that's enough for an entire podcast by itself. My dad my dad cannot apologize enough for what he did.
Is he still married to her?
Yeah.
Well, then, okay. So what the fuck does the apology mean?
I mean, he's apologized to me. I know he's a weak man, and he's still married to her.
No.
Yeah.
Do not strip his moral agency, James. Otherwise, you're just going to get angrier and angrier. Do not give the false forgiveness. Do not call someone weak because they are acting in a weak manner. That is an excuse.
Yeah, you're right.
Right? That's like saying some guy who overeats like crazy, well, he's just fat. It's like, no, he's fat now because of all the decisions he made in the past.
Mm.
Don't call him a weak man.
Mm.
He is a moral agent. Unless he actually has brain damage and has diminished capacity that's been verified neurologically, he is not a weak man.
Yeah.
He is a cunning man, and he may be a coward, but all of those are the results of decisions he made in the past.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, if you smoke for 30 years and you get lung cancer, it's not a mystery, right?
Yeah.
Well, he's just sick. Nope, he was a smoker, now he's sick. No, I really dislike, and all the shit that was most destructive to you happened when he had much more agency, even if he's weaker now, when you were, like, 20, 30 years ago, when you were young,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I got to tell you about my dad.
Okay, tell me about your dad.
All right. So my dad traveled a lot. He was gone. I mean, shit, from before I can remember up until, when I was in my late 20s, even until he retired. He traveled 2 to 3 weeks out of the month, every month, the whole year, and he'd fly around the world and go have business meetings.
Why did he choose to do that? He had children.
Exactly. Well, I mean, he made a ton of money, and I guess that was kind of more important.
So what, he liked the money more than time with his children?
I guess he did, and that's.
Do you think I could be making a little bit more money if I wasn't parenting full time?
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah, no doubt. I've had lots of business offers, lots of offers to get involved in various projects, and I've been offered shares in companies. I've been offered all this kind of owner. Oh yeah, I could be making a shit ton more money if I wasn't parenting full time. But what the fuck is my money going to do for me if I don't have a good relationship with my daughter?
Yeah.
Right? Can buy a lot of things, you can't buy love, right?
Yep, I agree.
All money does with an empty heart is allow you to be miserable in style.
And that's my dad. He is miserable in style.
Yeah, so he chose the money, and, like somebody who chooses the money and then basically abandons you to a child abuser, you take what you want and then pay for it. You take your cigarette smoking and you pay for it with your lung cancer. You take your alcoholism and you pay for it with your cirrhosis. And you take your junky, shitty food and you pay for it with diabetes. You take what you want and then you pay for it. I mean, all these guys who travel so much, yeah, we get it. You hate your wife. Yeah, got it, right? I want to sail around the world. I want to sail around the world on a boat. Okay, we get it. You hate your wife. I understand. Maybe go deal with your marriage.
No, Julia just said that. No, that's what you want to do. No, it's not what I want to do. I've seen, what that brings and what you end up with at the end. My dad has a ton of guilt, but I get what you're saying. It doesn't.
But so, I mean, yeah, well, you take what you want, you pay for it. If you don't spend much time around your kids and you let your wife abuse them, well, that can't be fixed.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Can't be fixed.
Yep.
You will never, ever, ever have the childhood that you needed and deserved.
Yep.
Neither will I. Neither will anybody else who was abused. You will never, ever have that childhood. Nobody can give it back to you. All those developmental milestones, all that trust, all that affection, all that love. I will never, ever have a childhood where I learned how to be fluent in Japanese. Right? Now, I can go learn Japanese now, but sure as shit, I will never, ever be fluent in the way that I could have been if I'd been raised speaking Japanese.
Yep.
And you weren't raised with peace and love and virtue and connection and affection and joy. And there's no restitution that's possible for that. Is there any amount of money that would make you be happy with the childhood you had?
No.
No, absolutely. Absolutely not. If people had showed me my childhood up to age 15 before I was born, I'd have said, pass. No, thank you.
I wonder if my childhood is. Yeah, I'm very money hungry. I'm very oriented towards making as much money as I can in my career, and I'm wondering what you think. Maybe is that something that's kind of I need resource. I'm thinking, do I need to collect as many resources as possible to survive?
Well, let me ask you this, if you don't mind me getting all kinds of base of the balls blunt.
Let's hear it.
How pretty was your mom?
Not at all.
Not at all, really?
I knew you were going to ask this. No, that's why I said my dad is a weak man. My mom was never pretty, even when she was 25. The best looking she ever got.
But wait, did your dad have a lot of money when she was 25?
No, he was broke.
Okay, so he got, again, in the base biological sense, I'm not saying all marriages are this way, but in the base biological sense, he got the number he could afford.
I would say so, yeah. Because his relationship with his own mother was completely screwed up. Both his parents, terrible relationship. They grew up in, actually, my family's from England. My dad's family's from Sheffield. My grandfather was a steel worker, and he worked himself to death. My grandmother was the breadwinner. I guess, they claimed to love each other, but it was rough. It was a rough marriage, and my dad had a rough upbringing in that. They were completely uneducated, and it pushed him to, make as much money as he possibly could and educate himself. He's the first one in our family to go to college, and he's got 2 degrees.
All right. And are you in your 30s at the moment?
31.
31. All right. And how pretty is Julia?
Out of 10? 12.
Yep. 12, did you say?
Yeah, maybe 13. I don't know.
Okay, so very, very pretty. Yeah. All right. And what does she do?
She does marketing. She's quite successful.
Ah, fantastic. And you're making some fairly good coin?
I did a few years ago, and I got out of the industry I was in, and I've got it's not a startup anymore. I've got a small company, and it's really taken off.
Fantastic. Good for you. And are you guys planning on having kids?
Yeah.
And what's your window?
We're trying right now, actually.
Right. Okay. And who's going to stay home?
Me.
Oh, really? How are you going to do the breastfeeding thing?
I'm willing to learn.
No, come on. You're all taps and no plumbing, brother, right?
I know. Well, we're fortunate enough where we've got a ton of flexibility, and we haven't. I guess Julia may be quitting her current job to kind of start her own part-time work where she could, I think, work from home.
Fantastic. Well, that sounds like a good arrangement. Good for you guys.
Yeah.
Now, was your mother a materialistic?
Oh, yeah. She had a spending problem for a while as well.
Okay, so this may be one reason why your dad felt the urge, right? She goes to splurge, he feels the urge to work, right?
Yeah.
She's got the whip and he's the workhorse, right?
Yep.
All right.
I should also say my mom is like a huge Marxist. She doesn't actually self-identify.
Wait. Did she have a job?
No.
Wait. So she's a Marxist in that she hates the exploitation of the working class, and she made your father work for her whole life?
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh my God.
Believe me, since I've been
Oh
listening to
my
the show,
God.
I've become so unpopular with her because
Oh
you know,
my God.
I take everything I learn from you that's applicable, and I let her know about it, and just she does not like it. She would hate you.
Oh, I hope so. Oh, I would consider it a vast insult if she didn't. I would drink deep of that hatred like the fine nectar of the sweaty gods of virtue. I would drink deep of that lovely. Any Marxist who likes me is just not a Marxist. And any child abuser who likes me, who's not repentant, well, they don't understand what's in store.
Mm. Mm.
All right. Yeah, so that's probably why he works, right?
Yeah, she's. I mean, she's always kind of had him wrapped around her finger.
Nope.
No,
No, you're taking away his agency again, man.
it's hard to do. I'm really trying to work on my relationship with my dad. I didn't have one when I was a kid, and I really want one with him.
Look. Okay, so man, what are you trying to get out of a relationship with these people? Like, help me understand that. I mean,
want
they can't undo the damage they've done, right? It's impossible to undo the damage. You left home when you were 17, right? That's 14 years ago, and I assume you left home because it sucked, right?
Yeah, guess where I went?
Into the army.
Oh yeah.
There we go.
Huh?
Yeah, because you were well trained for all of that, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Go hard.
And it's not like the army. The army exploits male victimhood, which is why it can't ever have sympathy for it, which is why female abusers and male drill sergeants are basically dick and pussy, two sides of the same coin.
Yep.
All right. So tell me, what are you trying to get out of your relationship with these people? I mean, that sounds like you shouldn't or whatever. I'm just really trying to understand that.
Okay. Yeah, I don't.
Your mom. You're sorry to interrupt. I just asked you a question, and I'm just about to ask another one. Sorry to interrupt. Your mom is unrepentant. Is that right?
Yeah, she doubles down on everything.
Right. So if there's a problem, it was you who was the problem, right? So she blames the victim, right?
Yep.
So if you were a rape victim, it was because of what you were wearing.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
So what the fuck do you think is going to happen, guys, when you have a child?
Yeah.
Are they going to be around?
What am I trying to get out of the relationship?
Yeah.
I don't care for a relationship with my mom, to be honest. I'll admit she's at times very convenient and when she's being good, but it's such a superficial relationship. And I've defood a couple times, and it worked wonders.
Wait, before you listen to this show?
Like just when I was starting to. I think I didn't talk to her for like 6 months. I banned her from my business. I didn't go to their house. I banned her from our house, and I was kind of like, oh, I want some kind of concession out of her. I want her to admit.
And what happened?
She was a lot better after it. But
wait, what do you mean a lot better? Did you get the concessions you wanted?
Yeah, I got them.
And what were they?
She had to admit she'd done something wrong. I kind of started.
Wait, no. I thought you said she doubled down, and did she?
Okay, she doubles down if I criticize her. If I really just penetrate to the core with her, I get and I really make her realize that she did something wrong, then it just turns into complete psychosis. She'll go on a 30-minute rant over the phone or in person, doesn't matter. She'll just rant on about.
Yeah, it's called narcissistic rage, but as far as I understand it, just using these terms as an amateur. Mm-hmm. So she's unrepentant.
Yeah, and again, she's.
So you didn't get your concessions. You may have forced her to say some stuff. But it's a confession under duress, which is inadmissible, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
No, because look, when someone is repentant, right? How would you know if she was truly repentant?
I wouldn't. She's given me a bunch of bullshit apologies before. I see right through those.
how would you know if she was truly repentant?
I listen to the show and I hear people who are truly repentant.
Okay, so what would she do practically if she were truly repentant?
She would cry. She would break down in tears. She would be falling over herself, apologizing, saying, "Oh my God, I was a terrible mother. I'm sorry. I've had I haven't been able to admit it." I never get that out of her. It's just, "I'm sorry."
I'm sorry you were upset.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's. I'm sorry you were upset. Not, I'm sorry for what I did.
Yeah, bullshit non-apology.
Yes.
Manipulation.
Yep.
And is your father in these conversations that you have with your mom? Is he around at all?
Typically not. My dad is he's very sensitive to any kind of debate or argument. We could be just discussing anything, like kind of not even a heated debate, and he's like, "This is bullshit. I'm getting out of here," and he'll storm off.
Oh yeah, that sounds very sensitive. Gosh. I mean, almost like a hibiscus in a hailstorm. So sensitive. Actually, that sounds pretty fucking aggressive to me.
Yeah.
So in any conflict between you and your mother, between the victim and the abuser, he takes a side of the abuser at the expense of the victim.
Yes, and he's told me many times, he's like, "You know what? Blah 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 blah. It doesn't matter what you say. I want her. You're gonna just. This is destroying my marriage. This feud when I defood."
Okay, so he really, like your mother, he really only cares about his own needs, and fuck you, right?
Pretty much.
Fuck the victim. Screw the victim. I want this woman. I'm desperately I desperately want the woman who abused you.
Yeah.
Well.
Exactly it.
Right. So this is why it's hard for you when your wife does this too, because it's what your dad's doing, right? I love her. I love your abuser. I love the drunk who didn't raise you except to hit you.
Do you say Julia's abusing me?
No. I'm saying that your father claims to love your mother, I assume, right?
Right.
And that is at your expense, at the expense of your emotional reality. Because if he got your emotional reality, he would take a stand with his wife and hopefully do something proactive to heal the insanity, the moral insanity and evil in the family, right?
Yeah.
So when your when your wife says, when Julia says, "I love your mother," and there are just these vague problems that you're both responsible for, but she glosses over them, which I'm not saying she's going to do now, but she did earlier in the conversation. That's what your father does.
Yeah, I don't think Julia understands at all the relationship I have with my mom.
Yes, she does. And
she does,
unless she's functionally retarded, she does. Because she understands, this is why I wasn't cutting her a break, right? And you shouldn't either. And Julia, you shouldn't with yourself either. Doesn't mean you beat up on yourself, but you can't wave the "I'm so confused" flag and expect to be taken seriously by anyone with an IQ over 90, right? Because somebody with an IQ of 100 or above, when they hear the adverse childhood experience score that James pointed out, and you've known about this for 6 months, is not going to be confused. All right? I mean, it's a bad relationship. It's an abusive relationship. She's an unrepentant child abuser who made your childhood a living hell. Am I off base here?
Not at all.
Okay, so that is a shitty, and that's not even a relationship. Right? Relationships have to be two people. Where the fuck are your needs? Where are your preferences? Where's your emotional reality? Where's your experience? Where's the openness to who you are and what your experience has been as a human being? It's nothing. If it's inconvenient, it's screamed away, right?
Yep.
So it's not a relationship. That's exploitation, which is why has these Marxistic rages when, right? When this is when your emotional reality, I'll tell you what happens in my opinion, right? Deep down in her evil little empty furnace of a heart, is that when your emotional reality begins to become real to her, her abuses begin to become real to her. She's not screaming away your emotional reality fundamentally. She's screaming away the approaching knowledge of her own abuses, her own evil.
Yeah.
And you can't fix that. You can't change that. Because every time she does that, she's doubling down on the evil.
Mm.
The victim cannot fix the abuser, right? We don't expect the rape victim to fix the rapist, right?
Oh, yeah.
We don't expect the victim of child rape to fix the pedophile. The victim cannot fix the abuser.
Mm.
The abuser can choose to fix himself or herself, but it takes a huge amount of work. It takes many years. It takes thousands and thousands of dollars, most likely, of therapy. It takes a massive commitment. Right? Many, many more people lose weight and keep it off than turn around being a child abuser.
That's a small percentage of people that keep the weight off.
Yeah.
Even smaller percentage.
I mean, I've been doing this for years and years now, and I've heard, you've listened to a bunch, right? I've heard it all, pretty much. And the number of parents who've actually taken ownership for child abuse, gotten therapy, paid for their kids' therapy, worked to really heal their families, taken responsibility for what they did as they inflicted moral responsibility on their 5-year-olds. Well, fingers of one hand, it is a very, very low percentage. And you can't miss it. And those people are heroic. I have little greater admiration than for people who are able and willing to do that. Well, everyone's able. They're just willing to do it. But you can't fix that. And if you think that your mom and your dad are somehow separate or in different moral categories, I believe, and I will make the case, that you are incredibly and tragically mistaken. They are a system. Your mother can't do what she does without your father, and your father can't do what he does without your mother. They are a system, right?
Yeah.
Every family, there's one overt abuser and one covert abuser. And the overt abuser gets blamed, and the covert abuser gets a get-out-of-jail-free card. I mean, he was paying her to abuse you, right?
Yes.
She couldn't have done it without him paying the bills. I'm not saying that he sort of woke up and said, here's $50, go hit the kid, right?
No,
But he's the enabler.
completely get it. I get it.
Right. Right.
For a while, though, I will say it was kind of me and my brother and my mom against my dad. My dad would come home from these business trips, and she's told me stories about how he would come home and call her a cunt and all this stuff. She broke her leg once. A lawnmower, like a riding lawnmower, rolled over her knee. She ended up in hospital for a couple of months. And whatever reason, the first time he saw her after the accident, it wasn't all.
Your brother, you mean?
What's that?
Sorry, you're talking about your brother here?
No, I'm talking about my dad. When he came and saw
okay.
my mom in the hospital for the first time after the accident, he just came in, and I don't know if she said something to set him off or what exactly happened, but basically he came in, fucking called her lazy and like, oh, you stupid bitch, you stupid cunt, and just called her a bunch of nasty names.
And you know those are two of the names you called your wife, right?
Yep.
Probably three. Lazy, right?
No, I never called Julia lazy, I don't think. Thank God. She's...
Okay, so 2 out of 3 is bad, right?
Yeah, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad.
So your dad is also a verbal abuser?
Yes. Both my parents,
Right.
actually.
Okay. And has he changed his ways as far as that goes? Has he taken responsibility for exposing you to that kind of language, for verbally abusing you?
He and I have not discussed that specific incident.
Oh my God, man!
I just found out from my mom recently, and they went out on the
No, but you knew he'd been a verbal abuser when you were a kid, right?
Towards me, I can't recall. I can't think of a specific incident where he was verbally abusive towards her, though. Definitely to me and my brother.
he was verbally abusive towards you, which is worse than him being verbally abusive towards your mother, because your mother was there by choice and could have left at any time, and you guys weren't either of those things, right?
But she would have never left because he had money, and she had a degree. And
and she wasn't pretty.
never
Right,
worked.
right.
And
Yeah, okay.
Exactly.
All right. So he's been verbally abusive to your mom, according to her. He was certainly verbally abusive towards you. He was absent. He paid for your victimizer. He left you in the company of your victimizer. He married your victimizer, and you haven't been able to discuss much of this with him at all.
I've gotten into quite a bit of it. I just found out about the hospital incident right before, like 2 days.
No, but he was verbally abusive towards you.
Yes, but it was usually accompanied with the kind of threats of violence. I'll take my slipper off. And,
Oh, so he beat you as well, right?
oh yeah, it's usually with a leather slipper, like a smack across the legs. I've heard a couple incidents that I do not remember. My mom had to tell me about them.
Right. Right.
Like crack my.
So you have basically two unrepentant child abusers.
Pretty much, yeah.
Right. So are you going to let him hang with your kids?
No. That's not gonna happen.
Do they know that?
I don't care. They're gonna find out. I don't give a shit what they think about that. There's no.
So what do you want from these people then? That you can reasonably expect to get, right?
I want some kind of a relationship. I don't.
And look, I'm not saying why, like you shouldn't, right? Because everyone mistakes this, right?
Right.
Right. Like I'm not saying you shouldn't, but the question is, why? They're unrepentant child abusers, and maybe there's a good reason. Like, I don't know, there's the private conversation. I won't talk about that. Maybe there's a good reason, but I don't know what it is, so that's why I'm asking why. Like, if you said to me, I want to go to Australia, I'd be like, why? I'm not saying you shouldn't go to Australia. I'm just saying, why do you want to go to Australia, right?
I have no support network other than Julia.
Are they a support network?
Julia.
What was your? No. Are your parents a support network?
No. I mean, they paid for shit. They, fed me.
Shit, that happens in prison. That doesn't get anyone any points.
Yeah, I know, but I didn't have anybody I can count on. I'll tell you this: when I met my mother-in-law, which was 2012, that was the first time I ever saw what a mom was supposed to be like. I saw Julia and her mom together. I said, "Holy fucking shit! Where was this when I was a kid?" Because I don't have that kind of relationship with either one of my parents. It was alien to me.
Right. That's a beautiful confusion.
So I consider
except that she was raised very nicely, and so she doesn't know how to deal with bad people. I'm guessing. I'm trying to give her as much of a break here as I can, right? But she needs to know that these were abusive people. They're unrepentant abusers. They're dangerous. Mm. They're dangerous for your psychological well-being. They're toxic, right?
Mm.
And I mean, if you can figure out something that you want from them that you can reasonably expect to get, or you reasonably want to work towards, fantastic. Go for it. Have them over for Sunday brunch every day of the week if you want. But you've got to know. Let me phrase this more clearly. If you're raised by incredibly selfish people, and I'm going to go out on a limb here and put these people in that category, at least within my own mind. If you're raised by incredibly selfish people, you don't know how to have your own needs around them, because having your own needs around them is very dangerous, because it results in what you call this psychotic stuff that happens from your mom if you really push her to the core, right?
Yeah.
Right.
She assumes that it's me attacking her. If any she can't take criticism. So,
right. This is true of abusers, right? Because there's so much to be criticized for, right? And because she knows that what she's done is unrecoverable. And so she just can't go down that road because she knows where it's going to lead. So you don't know how to have your needs around these people because all you're programmed to do by these selfish people is to do what they want, what's best for them, no matter at your fucking expense. Who cares, right? They're like starving kids, and you're like a guy with too much food. They just grab and run. So the reality is that when you are around them, you say, well, I want a relationship and this and that. How do you know? How do you know? How do you know it's not them who want you around? That's why I keep asking why. And if you can give me a good reason, I mean, you don't have to give me anything, right? But I'm saying I'll be satisfied if you can give me a good reason wherein there's a selfish pleasure of yours in this. Sure. But if you say, well, I want them around, I want a relationship, but it turns out you actually have no selfish interest in that, then you're doing it because they want you around. And that's a continuation of the abuse.
They do, definitely. They're the ones that initiate, like, everyone getting together, and they're the one that kind of tie me and Julia to, like, my brother and his wife, or they have been in the past. Now,
what do you mean tie?
I mean, just they keep us up on the news. Like, me and my brother for years, 10 years, didn't talk, and I was pretty rough on him. I remember one caller you talked to who was, I think he was beating up younger kids, and he beat up like his younger brother. I didn't physically beat up my brother, but I was rough on him, and I am definitely not proud of how I treated him when we were younger, and I'm working really hard to build a relationship with him.
So you know what restitution looks like. Attempted restitution looks like from the inside, right?
Like genuine restitution, or I mean, like what my mom does?
Yeah. I mean, no, you're taking responsibility for the abuses that you put on your brother.
Yeah.
You're trying to make amends. You're trying to fix it up, right?
I drove all the way to Chicago, and I told him to his face. I mean, that's the only reason I went there. I drove 6 hours to get there, and I just said, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for how I treated you when we were young, and I'm so ashamed of it. And then I've seen him a time after that, and we hugged each other.
And did that come out of the show, or was that some other influence?
No, this came out of the show.
Oh, good for you, man. I appreciate it. I mean, I'm good for you either way, but it's nice to hear that. It really is.
Yeah, you're doing good. You're helping a lot of people, especially.
That's great. Well, yeah, obviously keep it up with your brother I'm sure you will. But that's what restitution looks like, right? No excuses. This is what I did. I feel terrible about it, and tell me what it's been like for you. And then it's a whole lot of listening. Restitution is a whole lot of listening.
Yeah.
And circling back and revisiting the topic until the other person gets closure, no matter what it takes. But all of that. So this is my suggestion, right? And look, I really appreciate you guys' conversation in this. I mean, I hope that this was useful to you. I'm sorry that we didn't get to sort of the emotional connectivity stuff, but I get that there's a lot of stuff to get through. But I really appreciate you guys calling in. How was the conversation for you both?
You blew my mind.
I think it was very helpful because you opened my eyes to a lot of things that I just couldn't face it before. And it comes to the bottom line question: what do you want? What does Jane, I don't know what my husband wants from them. And I have to face them as the abusers, and I have to stand up for my husband and help him.
And your children to come.
Yeah.
If they're unrepentant child abusers, how comfortable do you feel having them around children?
Yeah, I don't feel comfortable at all.
And it's not just the relationship between the grandparents and the grandchildren. It's the relationship between the grandparents and your husband, and the grandparents and you. How effective is he going to be as a father if he's in a room with unrepentant child abusers who scarred his youth? Is he going to yell at your kids because he's angry at his parents, right?
Yeah.
I don't think there's any place where you get to where you get such closure that you can still be around unrepentant abusers and not be upset. I think that's like saying that the purpose of treating PTSD is to put people back into war. That's not the point, right?
Yeah.
The point is don't go to war, right? I mean, that's sort of the point, right?
Yeah, you're preaching to the choir on that one.
Okay, so I'm sorry to interrupt it. You were still talking about it, and I just asked you a question that interrupted, so I apologize for that. Julia, please go on.
No, don't worry. Yeah, so that's it. But I think it's very important for James to find out what he really wants. I mean, I'm here to support him and our family, and but I have to know what he wants, and that's up to him.
No, that's too passive, and that's why I wanted to get you back in, right? No, you don't have to know and facilitate what he wants. He's the victim, which means his judgment is impaired, right? Right? Do you remember what he did with his mother when she was getting into the car drunk when he was 16?
Yeah, I just found out this right now. I didn't know about that.
Yeah, he threw her keys. He threw her keys into the woods, right? Because her judgment was impaired. Right? You have to, with all the strength that comes from your good upbringing and the healthy relationship you have with your parents, you have to stand firm and stand tall for what is best for him. And he's going to be confused about it because they're his parents and they raised him, right? So don't be passive and say, well, I'll facilitate what he wants, right? I mean, it could be like a 2-year-old with a cookie jar. You don't just keep handing them cookies till they throw up, right?
Right.
You know better because you're on the outside and you have a good relationship with your parents. And you have the facts now, the moral facts. And he is going to automatically want to do what they want at his own expense. That's how he was raised. That's what it's like to grow up with narcissistic parents. You do what they want and you self-erase and you conform to what they want at your own expense. Because that's how you survive people who don't have empathy and who only know their own needs and who basically hit you like a broken TV if you don't do what they want. So don't be passive and say, I want to facilitate what he wants, because he was raised by selfish parents. So he is used to conforming to their needs at his own expense, and that will be at your expense. And I believe, Julia, it has been at your expense.
So basically he does what he was taught to do.
What he was forced to do.
Yeah.
What he was forced to do. What he had to do to survive.
In order to survive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand.
Let me put it to you even more vividly, all right? Let's say that he was in a cult, right? He was raised in a cult and there was some all-powerful cult leader who beat the kids whenever they disobeyed, right?
Right.
Would you say, well, it's up to him whether he wants to see that cult leader or not?
No, you definitely have to step up and establish the limits.
You'd say, well, yeah, tell me what do we hope to gain out of this? Well, what's the point of this? What's like, I'm going to facilitate whatever you want. That's not standing firm in your family for your interests of yourself and your husband and your children. If they're toxic and the toxicity goes into him and then through to you, it's defending your love for him to keep him safe, right?
Right. Yeah, that's basically what I really have to do.
Yeah, keep on him and say, well, what is the, what are we trying to get out of this? Well, what is the value of this out of you? Keep reminding him that he's got his own needs and he can't get his needs met from unrepentant child abusers. I mean, by definition, right? Unrepentant child abusers have historically put their own needs at the expense of the child. And if they're unrepentant, then they're still going to keep doing that. He can't get his needs met from unrepentant child abusers. It's not possible. So either they have to repent or he's got to figure out something else. And you need to stand tall in that, right? That's the power that you bring, particularly because you have a healthy relationship with your parents. That is the strength that you bring. And I'm not saying he doesn't have to do anything. I'll talk to him about that in a sec. But the goal here is going to want to be passive. But if they are as dangerous and toxic as he says, and they're around your family, then they are going to toxify your family.
Yeah. Which is
Right.
pretty
So
sad. It's
it is. Listen, I get it. It's desperately sad. It's desperately sad. And this is not what you signed up for or what you thought you were walking into, right?
yeah, because once again, I didn't know about all of this,
On the surface, it looks fantastic. Happy
Oh,
family.
I get you guys. You guys pose well. I bet you it's a Hallmark card
Yeah.
from a distance, right?
Yep.
And look, I mean, this is what's instructive about this is to other listeners, ask this stuff, right? Drill deep. That sounds like early dating advice in general, but drill deep into each other's childhoods. Find out what it was like for the other person. Keep asking questions. Really figure this stuff out. Don't accept surface answers. If something seems inconsistent, keep asking until it completely makes sense to you. But really, really understand other people's childhoods before you get married. And it doesn't mean that your marriage is doomed or anything like that, because you guys are making a fantastic work of working through this stuff now. But it is obviously, it's better to know this stuff beforehand. Doesn't mean you don't get married, but it means you go in without ending up in these kinds of messes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Not everybody's into free domain radio like I am.
I know, but I'm telling people who are, listen to ask people about their childhoods. You should have heard my second date with my wife. Oh my God. It's like she had a Gestapo flashlight and a rubber hose. Oh no, that was the third date.
No,
Sorry, I'm plowing through 50 Shades of Grey at the moment, so I'm very confused about a lot of things. Sorry, James, you were going to say?
Yeah, I definitely asked Julia when we were dating about her childhood. I asked about, like, what was the other thing? I asked about, like, do you have any tattoos or other thing? Like, do you have a tramp stamp? Any other red flags for me? And I definitely asked about the childhood. This is years ago.
Yeah, now you didn't know at the time, right? But you were kind of responsible for knowing, right? Because you were 28 when they met, right? And self-help books are all over the place. Dr. Phil's like the biggest show on daytime TV. Before that was Oprah. Before that was Donahue. I mean, it's been going on forever, right? This childhood matters is right part of right. So anyway, water under the bridge, but there's ownership for that. Now, the last thing that I want to say, James, is to you. All right.
Okay.
Have I been pretty sympathetic?
Very.
Good. Okay. So I say this with respect and with affection. You cannot be calling your wife these names.
I agree.
You absolutely cannot. This will shred your marriage irrevocably if it keeps up. It will wound her in places that can't be fixed.
Yeah.
If you keep this up. It is unbearable to be called those kinds of names in an intimate relationship. You know, when you are married to someone, it's like your lips are right next to her ear. What happens if you scream?
She's going to get hurt.
She's going to get hurt. She's going to recoil, and at some point, she's just going to get deaf.
Yeah.
Right? You guys are so close. And your template for closeness is escalation. But I'm telling you, when you are close with someone, and marriage is close, obviously it's the closest, you need the lightest touch possible. She is a sensitive woman. She is a courageous woman, right? I called her out pretty hard, would you say?
Oh, yeah. I thought she was going to walk away.
She, like, Julia, congratulations. Fantastic. I mean, that wasn't the easiest thing you've done today, right?
No, it was not easy at all.
No, and you stuck with it, I hope. Right. Yeah. I mean, good for you. I mean, fantastic. I mean, I was doing all kinds of risky stuff there and really pushing hard. And I appreciate you listening, and I appreciate that it was helpful. But that's a woman who's got some guts, right? That's a woman who's got a spine. And that's a woman who can listen. Right? I was being assertive. I was not being aggressive. I was not being abusive. And she, I thought, responded magnificently. I just wanted to mention that because, yay, good job, right? But, Julia, am I wrong that if these words keep coming, isn't it going to shut your heart down at some point?
Yeah, they're very hurtful,
Yeah, they stick. right? They stick like burrs, right? They stick in your heart. And it takes a long time for that to wear away. You know, a crater hits a plane, it takes a long time for that plane to get flat again, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, James, you can't do it. I know you're going to have the urge, but you know, and you of all people know what it's like to be on the receiving end of that stuff, right?
Yeah.
You know how hurtful it is.
Yeah.
You can't do it. If it means you've got to like hold your fist in your mouth, if it means you've got to put your head underwater, right? If it means you've got to bite a towel or go for a 4-hour walk, you cannot say those words to your wife.
Yeah, you're right. And I know
right?
it. And I know
okay,
it.
and I know you know it, but I really got to put that right. Yeah, and you know you cannot do it, right?
Yeah.
It's not like you get possessed. It's not epilepsy, right? It's not like some giant Satan hand goes up your ass and flaps your talking hole, right? Right? But you can. That will destroy your marriage. I think her not supporting you with your parents in a very proactive way and drawing all the strength of her good relationship with her parents and standing up for you, I think that will destroy your marriage. And if you keep using this language with your wife and if you keep being aggressive with your wife, that will destroy your marriage. So she's got to stand up for you with your parents, and you have to stand down with your mouth, right?
Yeah.
There's no place for those grenades in love, right?
I agree.
Okay, so that's the last thing that I wanted to say about that. Will you guys let us know how it goes?
You want us to call back in a few months?
You can just send an email or call back. I always just like to know how it works out. I mean, I think you guys are great listeners, and you really do care about each other. You're willing to stand for all of that. I hope it works out for you guys. I think if you follow this advice, I think you've got a good shot. I think you've got a great shot. I think you've got a great shot if you follow the advice.
Yeah.
But if you can do it, and if you can create a safe environment, great parents. It sounds like you've got some coin, you've got some flexibility. You can work part-time. You can be at home. You can be there for your kids in a way that obviously was the case for you, Julia, but not the case for you, James, which is, of course, I'm really sorry for. But what a great environment. You could be the kind of parents that every kid is like begging to get born into, right?
I hope so. That's
That's
very,
what we
very
hope.
very, very optimistic. And I'm definitely reading up on the peaceful parenting and UPB, and I'm definitely planning to implement those things and not make the same mistakes that my parents and their parents have been making for generations. I'm really trying to break the cycle, and I know Julia is as well.
Fantastic. And there's no reason why you can't. There's no reason why you can't. This is how we break the cycle. This is how we make the world the better place. This is the greatest revolution that our species is capable of. And I admire you guys intensely for taking it on. I think it'll pay off in ways that will be blinding to your current eyesight. And I do thank you guys so much for calling in.
Yeah, and thank you for you and your advice and everything that you and Mike do.
Yeah.
So
Thank you very much.
we really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Keep us posted. Very best wishes to you both, and certainly let us know if y'all get pregnant. Mike, is there anything you wanted to add to that?
Oh, thanks again, guys, for calling in. That was wonderful.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
All right. Well, I guess here we get to the point in the show where we're reminded as to why we're doing an extra call-in show next week, because we're getting through 2 calls tonight. FDRURL.com/donate if you'd really like to help get this conversation out to more and more and more people. Mike, did we get our bill yet?
We did not get our bill yet for our CDN service, but I was informed that we were supposed, in addition to the $7,000 that we were quoted originally, apparently now we're going to have to pay a storage fee as well per gig, which is going to be sizable. So it's actually more
When
than...
you say sizable, Mike, given that this is the first I'm hearing of it, what are we talking here?
I still got to figure it out, and we got to get the quote, but it...
Couple of grand? I mean,
no, it might be a couple hundred a month. Might be a couple hundred a month extra, so...
Excellent. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I can't breathe. Okay, let's do some more calls. All right. So, yeah, sorry about that, everyone. I guess we'll, So if you want to help out with all of these costs, we're doing we did 100,000 video views the other day, right? I think we're regularly cruising around that level, which is pretty cool. And I know we do sometimes about the same, sometimes slightly more for audio podcasts. That's like 250,000 shows a day.
Yep, absolutely.
That is some seriously impressive monkey magic mojo going down. I mean, 250,000 scatter shots of fireflies up the nose, straight into the neofrontal cortex.
Just for fun, so people know, we got 25 million minutes of stuff watched on YouTube in the last 28 days.
25 million minutes, right. Not just me. Peter Joseph, Peter Schiff, Storm Clouds Gathering. I mean, lots of other people as well. And, of course, all the experts who've been on the show. So, yeah, 25 million minutes, 250,000 shows a day. Now, wait a minute. Actually, hang on a sec, Mike. Let's do this math. So we asked for 50 cents a show, right?
We do.
So 250,000 shows a day.
Oh, my God.
Are we
rich.
absolutely getting $125,000 a day? Can you imagine what we would do with that?
Uh-huh.
I'm sure it's slightly less than that. Of course, it's been a while since I've looked at PayPal, but I'm sure it's slightly less than that. It may, in fact, be considerably less than that, which is why we're whining about $10,000 of server costs. But anyway, yeah, we do ask for 50 cents a show. And, actually, I have to correct something because I did say I had not referred to Free Domain Radio as a charity. It turns out that in something I wrote 7 or 8 years ago, I did say that I was running a charity. That's back when I was working full-time and this was more of a hobby. So, because I really either wasn't taking donations or had just started taking donations. So, yes, it is true. Thank you to the nitpickers that I did, in fact, say at one point when in the dawn of the show that I referred to it as a charity. But it's certainly not the case anymore, and I'd completely forgotten about that. So anyway, fdrurl.com/donate to help out the show. It's massively appreciated. I mean, people who want their political parties to succeed, donate. People who want their religions to succeed, donate. And if you want philosophy to succeed, well, you know what you need to do. It is a show that runs on the honor system. So do the honorable thing and donate for what you consume. So thanks, everyone. Have yourselves a wonderful, wonderful night. Thank you again to all the callers who've called in. We will talk to you soon.